that they're going to fail. I think that that's defeatist. I don't think that Prime Minister Carney walked into his meeting with Donald Trump today expecting it to fail. I think he walked in hopeful.
Why did you make the decision to have your speech yesterday at 3 o'clock?
My fellow Albertans, today I wish to speak to you about the future of Alberta and Canada. Albertans have always been loyal, proud, and generous Canadians. We love Canada. We have fought wars and died defending Canada. We've opened our doors wide for millions of our fellow Canadians searching for opportunity, many of whom stay and become Albertan, and many who return home to their native province. All have been welcomed with open arms. Our province has contributed hundreds of billions of dollars more to the federal treasury for use in other parts of the country than we'll ever receive back in benefits. We have allowed this to occur because, quite frankly, we know how blessed our province is with an endowment of natural resources that no other country on earth possesses. And we want all of our friends, families, and fellow Canadians across the country to benefit from it. We don't ask for special treatment or handouts. We just want to be free to develop and export that incredible wealth of resources we have for the benefit of our families and future generations. Free to pursue opportunities with the ideals of entrepreneurship, hard work, and innovation that have become synonymous with the name of our province.
I always hear the grumbling, but how many people really want to separate?
We are in an abusive, toxic relationship with Ottawa and the East, and it's been that way since Alberta joined Confederation.
In my opinion, is not the direction to go.
I don't want Alberta to separate from the rest of Canada.
What I'm having here is because of Canada. So I love the country. Country comes first always.
I think BC and Saskatchewan have equally been neglected.
Alberta has had separatist sentiments and discussions about potentially leaving Canada for various reasons. Alberta's energy industry has faced challenges and regulations that some perceive as unfair. Another factor is cultural differences. Alberta has a distinct culture and values that may differ from other provinces. Some Albertans feel disconnected from the federal government and underrepresented. These factors contribute to discussions about Alberta's place in Canada, but no formal separation process has been initiated. Is it possible for Alberta to exit Canada? Theoretically, it's complex and challenging for Alberta to exit Canada. The Canadian Constitution doesn't outline a clear process for provincial secession. If Alberta were to pursue independence, it would likely involve referendum, a provincial vote in favor of leaving Canada. Second steps will be negotiations. Alberta would need to negotiate with the federal government and other provinces, and of course, constitutional amendments. Changes to the Canadian Constitution would be required. This process would be unprecedented, contentious, and potentially lengthy. It's uncertain whether Alberta could exit Canada without significant legal, economic, and social implications. Before Canadian Confederation in 1867, the provinces were governed as separate British colonies with their own local governments and legislatures. Some key features of governance during this period include British North America Act's precursors. Various acts and ordinances governed the colonies. Colonial administration. Each colony had a governor appointed by the British monarch and a legislative council. Limited self-government. Colonies had some autonomy but ultimately reported to British authorities. The push for Confederation aimed to create a unified Canadian government, streamlining decision-making and strengthening the country's position internationally. How would Alberta be governed if it eventually exists Canada? If Alberta were to become an independent country, it would likely establish its own system of government. Here's a possible outline. Alberta would draft and adopt its own constitution, outlining the framework of government, citizens' rights, and responsibilities. Alberta might adopt a parliamentary or presidential system with separate executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Alberta could have a prime minister, premier, or president serving as head of government. Legislature. A unicameral or bicameral legislature would be established to make laws. Alberta would establish its own court system, including a Supreme Court. This new government would need to address various aspects, such as economic policies, international relations, defense, healthcare, education. The specifics would depend on Alberta's chosen system and priorities. You're right, Alberta's geography is deeply intertwined with Canada. If Alberta were to become independent, it would need to establish international borders and customs agreements, develop its own economic systems, including currency and trade policies, negotiate with Canada and neighboring provinces, British Columbia and Saskatchewan, on issues like border crossings, resource sharing, and infrastructure. This would require significant coordination and cooperation with Canada and other provinces. The process would be complex, involving diplomatic efforts, economic restructuring, and potentially constitutional changes. I assume issuing visa for its visitor outside Canada will be difficult. If Alberta becomes independent, its visa and immigration policies would likely undergo significant changes. Here are a few possible scenarios. Independent visa policy. Alberta might establish its own visa requirements and issuance process for visitors and immigrants. This would allow Alberta to tailor its policies to its specific economic and demographic needs. Alternatively, Alberta might choose to maintain a shared visa framework with Canada, potentially simplifying travel and immigration processes between the two countries. Alberta would need to negotiate diplomatic agreements with other countries to establish visa requirements, waiver programs, and other immigration-related policies. In any case, issuing visas for visitors outside of Canada would likely require Alberta to establish its own diplomatic missions or consular services, develop relationships with other countries' governments and immigration agencies, create and implement its own visa application and processing systems. This would be a complex and resource-intensive process, requiring significant investment in infrastructure, personnel, and international relations. Before we continue with the questions and answers, let's delve deep a little on the origin of the Alberta separatism movement itself. As the results of the 2019 federal election were announced, partisan divisions along regional lines were clear, showing Albertans' antagonism to the party that had just been re-elected. With this came talks of separatism, or implying a Western exit from Canada. However, do Albertans really support separation from Canada? And who are the people that support separation? The evidence from the Viewpoint Alberta study shows that most Albertans are not separatist, though demographic, partisan, and ideological identification may help explain who supports the Alberta separatist movement. By provincial law, they need 177,000 Albertans willing to sign up for a vote to go ahead, and Rath says they've already passed that number. The potential benefits of Alberta's independence from Canada are debated. Some possible advantages include greater autonomy. Alberta could make its own decisions on policies like taxation, healthcare, and education. Alberta might have more flexibility to manage its economy, including its energy industry. Independence could allow Alberta to promote its unique culture and values. However, potential challenges and drawbacks include economic uncertainty. Separation could lead to economic instability, at least initially. Alberta might lose access to federal funds for various programs and services. New trade agreements and border arrangements would need to be negotiated. Whether independence would benefit the people of Alberta depends on various factors, including the terms of separation, economic conditions, and the ability of the new government to effectively manage the transition. The potential exit of Alberta and Quebec separatism share some similarities, but also have distinct differences. Desire for autonomy. Both movements stem from a desire for greater control over provincial affairs. Economic grievances and resource management have been cited as reasons for separation in both cases. How about the differences? Quebec's separatist movement has deep historical roots, tied to linguistic and cultural differences. Alberta's movement is more recent, driven by economic and political grievances. Quebec's movement is closely tied to preserving French language and culture, whereas Alberta's movement is more focused on economic and political autonomy. Quebec held 2 referendums on sovereignty, 1980 and 1995, while Alberta has not had a similar referendum. Quebec's separatist movement has historically had significant popular support, while Alberta's separatist sentiment is currently less widespread. These differences would likely influence the nature and outcome of any potential separation process. A September 2018 poll by Ipsos indicated that 62% of Albertans believe that Alberta does not get its fair share from Confederation, up from 45% in 1997. 46% feel more attached to their province than to their country, up from 39% in 1997. 34% feel less committed to Canada than I did a few years ago, up from 22% in 1997. 18% believe the views of Western Canadians are adequately represented in Ottawa, down from 22% in 2001, and 25% believe my province would be better off if it's separated from Canada, up from 19% in 2001. So there you have it. I hope I was able to answer some of your lingering question about Alberta separatism movement. Time will tell if we ever move to the stage of referendum, passing the constitutional legal side of things, talk less of exciting Canada by both the Albertan or Quebecers. Or will Canada eventually be divided into Western and Eastern Canada? If you had enjoyed this educative content, we encourage to please share, comment, and like this video. God bless Canada.